Thank you. Good afternoon. I'd be remiss, first and foremost, if I did not introduce the mothership to the Korean Women's Organization, our board of directors, several of which have been founding members from 1972. So, board, if you could please stand up and be recognized. And good afternoon. My name is Peter Ansara, and I am the executive director of the Korean Women's Association. I'm just going to make a little plug about us. We are a social service organization that provides multicultural services all up and down the I-5 corridor and out to the peninsula in 9 counties and 11 cities. Among the many services that we provide are naturalization and immigration, home care, housing. This is one of our housing developments that we own and operate, and other services. We have a $20 million annual budget. We employ over 1,000 people within the Puget Sound. And as many of you know, that our local and global economies contain a lot of uncertainty. Many people are without jobs. Those are people that we help. Many worry about putting food on the table. And as such, we need to do smart things that stimulate the economy, that provide jobs, and that put food on tables of families across the Puget Sound and across this great nation. KWA does that, and what it has been doing is providing jobs and infusing its capital in many communities in the state. Between payroll and goods and services, we expend over $19 million annually. Over 96% of our budget goes toward direct services, and all that money stays and goes to local businesses, again, up and down the I-5 corridor and beyond. We believe that in order to expand payrolls and to promote the sale of goods and services, not just ours, but all our friends and neighbors, we all need to do more. And I've studied the U.S.-Korea Free Trade Agreement, and one of those ways, I think, is why we are here today, and that is to support this trade agreement. This agreement, I believe, personally, would create new jobs and opportunities for economic growth by immediately removing barriers to U.S. goods that travel back and forth over the borders, and more specifically, our friends in Korea. We are an important part of the economic engine here in Washington. Our workers, our manufacturers, our farmers, and our producers of goods. Interesting to note, in 2008, Washington, Oregon accounted for a $1.3 billion trade surplus with Korea. As of November of 2009, the latest number I could find, it was a 38% reduction. So in less than 1 year's time, we had a 38% reduction by way of trade. Since that time, the EU, or the European Union, and South Korea have negotiated their own free trade agreement. I think that's very smart on the European part, but the expectation is that that agreement will soon be ratified, and as such, in my view, it clearly puts us at a major disadvantage. So if trade barriers between the U.S. and Korea are removed, exports will increase, and there will be a clear path for the greater Pierce County and the Sound and the state of Washington to reap those benefits. And I think a few of them are this. I think 4 things. One is to create new jobs here in the Sound and within the state, especially here in our own hometown of Tacoma and Pierce County. We need to level this. 2, I think we need to level the playing field for local, state, and local businesses. And this also will promote U.S. competitiveness across the border or border to border. And probably the most important is it will already strengthen a partnership that already exists with the critical partnership, and that is Korea. So, here in Washington, we produce many things, from apples to machinery. We need to take every opportunity necessary to prosper. So today, I am pleased to introduce a very special guest, His Excellency Han Duk-Soo, Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to the United States. He is here to promote and have a dialogue with us about the U.S.-Korea Free Trade Agreement. There's no doubt in my mind about his understanding of free trade. the economy and finance. He has served this country in many capacities, among them as Senior Secretary to the President for Economic Affairs, Deputy Prime Minister, and Minister for Ministry of Finance and Economy. He was educated, he doesn't know this, in my backyard of Cambridge. I'm actually from Lowell, Mass, so I hope you're a Boston Red Sox fan. And he holds a master's and a doctorate in economics from Harvard University. He is a friend and a supporter. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency Han Duk-Soo.
Thank you, Peter, for your very kind comments. And I'd like to thank Mr. Brackett, who actually co-chaired with Korea Women's Association. Good afternoon, everybody. I really thank you for returning and sending the good weather back to me and our team. Thank you. Yesterday was also very good, and we were very lucky to be in Seattle with such a good weather. I'm so happy today to be here with my fellow Koreans as well as the members of Tacoma Chamber of Commerce. I understand that the growth of Korean Women's Association from its humble beginning in 1972 really mirrors the growth of South Korea itself. 50 years ago, our country was one of the most poorest country on earth. Thanks in part to the iron determination and work ethic of the Korean people, it is now one of the most prosperous countries. It has the world's 15th largest economy and the 4th largest nation. 38 years ago, Korea Women's Association was founded with a budget amounting to almost nothing. Today is $20 million, and your mission has branched out in many directions from its original focus. If only you could apply your dedication and resolve to gaining approval of the Korea-US Free Trade Agreement, I'm convinced that you would get it done in about 48 hours. That would allow me to spend the rest of my ambassadorship in Washington, D.C., helping my wife around the house. I flew in yesterday from Washington, D.C. to deliver a clear, simple, and important message. The Korea-US Free Trade Agreements will create jobs in the United States. It will stimulate economic growth, and it will preserve and strengthen the vital partnership between our two countries, a partnership based on security and shared values of democracy and market economy. Along the way, I've learned that there is a high level of misunderstanding about the Korea-US trade relationship. For example, people have been surprised to learn that the U.S. ran a $940 billion trade surplus with Korea in the first quarter of this year. They've also been surprised to learn that since 2006, the flow of Korean private sector investments in the United States has been larger than the reverse. In 2008, Korean companies invested $6.3 billion in the United States as compared with $1.3 billion US invested in Korea. These cross-border investments create jobs, and the KOROS FTA will facilitate more of it. The US government predicts that it will create at least 70,000 manufacturing jobs across the United States. The US International Trade Commission, an independent, non-partisan government agency, estimates that the FDA will increase US exports to Korea by $11 billion and will add $12 billion to the US gross domestic product. Let's look at how the KOROS FTA can help a business right here in Tacoma. The Roman Mill Company has been baking whole wheat bread in Tacoma since 1912. Its bread and other food products are in stores throughout the United States and in several countries in East Asia and the Pacific. But Korea is not one of them because Korea imposes a whopping 800% tariff on whole wheat. The KOROS FDA will phase that tariff out completely over a 10-year period, and the Roman Mill will have a new market of 40 million affluent consumers. Roman Mill is far from alone in this. Businesses throughout Washington state will find Korea an attractive export market after implementation of the KOROS FDA, which will eliminate 95% of Korea's import tariffs within 3 years. It will also give U.S. financial services firms operating in Korea all the rights and privileges that their counterparts enjoy. This is the first FDA that allows foreign law firms to offer services in Korea and permits American lawyers to associate more freely with Korean lawyers. It holds similar privileges for accountants. And for firms that create copyrighted works, of which there are quite a few in the Seattle area, the KOROS FDA includes some of the strongest intellectual property rights protections ever written into a free trade agreement. The opening of the Korean service market is also expected to expand opportunities for Korean American professionals, especially younger ones, to find good jobs in Korea. Lots of American banks, brokerage firms, and accounting firms will set up their affiliated companies in Korea and will need to hire young Korean American professionals like your sons and daughters. Finally, the KOROS FDA will cement the Korea-US alliance in the 21st century, just as the Korea-US Mutual Defense Treaty did during the 20th century. It will be a new bond that holds our two countries more tightly together. The FDA will allow the United States to maintain its economic and strategic influence in East Asia, a region that is undergoing seismic change. President Lee and Mr. President Obama met last June in Toronto and decided the time had come to get this free trade agreement done. President Obama said he wanted the remaining concerns addressed before he goes to Seoul in November for the G20 summit. So we have no time to lose. The agreement was signed 3 years ago, and finally we have an opportunity to finalize it. We were close to the finish line, and we need your help to get there. For in the end, success will not come because of people like me. It will come because of good people like you. Thank you very much for your time.